All rise for Judge Amy. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Judge Amy, a show that didn't intend on making a show, but these cases just sometimes fall into my lap. See, I did that as a sort of, a little ha-ha. Let's just start the court case. One of the all-great-time TV characters is my favorite lieutenant, Columbo, who was played by the late, great Peter Falk from 1968 all the way to 2003, which, damn, I wasn't born yet. And before you say, oh, he died in 2011. And also, he was starting to get, dementia, I think? Editing Amy here, he died of pneumonia. Now, Peter Falk isn't technically the first person to play Columbo, although he's the only person we associate as Columbo. The first person that ever actually played him was in a TV movie by actor Burt Freed in 1960, before the writers of the episode, aka Richard Levinson and William Link, I think chose people? No, wait, hold on. So according to this, court thingy, the role of Columbo was actually originated in a TV movie by actor Burt Freed in 1960, before the writers of the episode then adapted the character into a stage play in 1962 called Prescription Murder, which was eventually made into a little pilot for Columbo that had my man Peter Falk in it.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salads and scrambled eggs.
So, with that little thingy out of the way, what is the mystery of Columbo's first name? The now famous format of the Columbo TV series is that the first 20 to 30 minutes of the episode shows you the... This is what I love about the show. I always want to make a video about Columbo, and I think I can just jump it into here. I know I like old stuff, but this is a really good format for a show. Every episode of Columbo is an hour long, and I have Tubi, so I have ads to, I have commercials to space it out, even when they piss me off, and I just feel like switching my computer with my ad blocker, but in, the first 20, 30 minutes, we see the person who's about to commit the crime. We see how they plan it, we see what goes on in their lives, and stuff like that, and then we see, why they have to do the crime, and then we see them do the crime, and then, once the crime gets committed, we get introduced to Columbo, who famously arrives looking all frazzled and, looking all shabby with his raincoat. Which, fun fact, the outfit that Columbo wore was actually Peter Falk's clothes, so thank you, Peter Falk. Very cool. There are then 3 regular moments in nearly every episode. Probably every episode, but I don't want to overpromise. Also, me currently, I'm rewatching seasons 1 and 2. I haven't rewatched 3 yet, and there are a lot of seasons of Columbo. Y'all are gonna need to catch up. First, Columbo discovers a clue that leads him to realize that the death was in fact a murder, not anything else, not a self-deletion or an accident, as the murderer often tries to disguise it as it is. Typically, a murderer will be like, "Oh, baby," but no, that's never what it is, because we saw what happened, but we need Columbo to know that that's not what happened. Columbo's bumbling appearance allows the murderer to think that, they got the detectives fooled, because Columbo looks like a stupid man, but Columbo... No, he ain't. Columbo likes to get people on the edge when he asks his most famous line, which is just one more thing. Once he asks that question, he keeps asking questions that make them get nervous and makes them realize, Columbo's onto them. Then it's just a matter of time until he discovers the final clue, Columbo, which is the one that proves that the murderer did do the crime. Often this comes from Columbo tricking the murderer. I think a really, the article is about to claim. There's a season 2 episode with one of my favorite actors, Robert Culp, where he plays a PI, I think, and throughout the episode, I was like, oh my god, how's Columbo gonna catch this guy? Because I forgot. And then I remembered that he mentions that the victim wore contacts because she used to wear glasses, and then he's like, well, maybe a contact was left there or something. He only said that to trick the guy into going there, and he's like, yeah, I did it. I want you to know the main hook of the show is that people think Columbo's dumb, when he's actually just a really smart fucking dude. I mean, damn! Columbo, I don't know how long the show's been going on, but he's had, like, a lot of shit. Lasting until 2003, he had to go through the 80s and 90s. The 60s and 70s were fine, but the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s with the technology advancing and Columbo still catches these people is kind of baffling. As noted in one episode, "You know, sir, it's a funny thing. All my life I kept running into smart people. I don't just mean smart like you and the people in this house. You know what I mean? In school, there were a lot of smart kids. When I first joined the force, sir, they had some very clever people there, and I could tell right away that it wasn't going to be very easy making detective as long as they were around. But I figured if I worked smarter and harder than they did, put in more time, read the books, keep my eyes open." Funny, I'm not gonna make jokes. "Maybe I can make it happen." And I did. And I really love my work, sir. Now, I know you're probably wondering, okay, Amy, get to the point, what does this have to do with Columbo's identity? Well, I'm glad you asked that, because we're about to get into that. You see, Columbo often lulls his suspects into a false sense of security by telling stories about his life, like, his wife and his kids, which opens up the possibility he's making up all of them, but we know Mrs. Columbo is real. Like, his wife and also Peter Falk's wife has starred in some episodes of Columbo, so there is a real Mrs. Columbo technically. It's Peter Falk's wife, she's a real person. And also, Mrs. Columbo in the show was only mentioned on the phone, so she is real, and also we'll be making a video about her soon, don't worry about it. But for all the talk of his personal life, the show never has anyone saying Columbo's first name. They're always calling him Lieutenant Columbo, or just Columbo. Over the years, we'd occasionally see his identification, which says Frank Columbo, but these are just background shots and never actually established firmly in any episode. However, the real controversy and the reason for this court case came from a board game that said that Columbo's first name was Philip. What was the big deal about that?
Quite stylish. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe.
In 1974, Fred L. Wirt's first collection of the Trivial Encyclopedia, was released. It was a hit, and 3 years later, the complete unabridged Super Trivia Encyclopedia was released. This, too, was a big hit, and so, in 1981, Wirt's third book, Super Trivia Volume 2, came out. The books were so popular that Wirth worried about people, in effect, stealing his trivia from their own work. There is an old tradition among map makers to include an intentional mistake in their maps, so that if someone else released a map featuring the same mistake, it will be proof that the other map maker stole their map. Very clever. Wirth followed by that path by sprinkling in a few intentionally false pieces of trivia. One of those examples was naturally the fact of Columbo's first name being Philip. Well, in the early 1980s, a new board game became a blockbuster. Titled Trivial Pursuit, the trivia game had an interesting origin itself, which CBR, the person who wrote this article, detailed in an Old Legends Revealed, before exploding in popularity. Players would have to answer trivial questions in different categories, and the first one to correctly answer a question in each category would win. Well, obviously, for something like that, the game makers needed trivial questions, and Wirt's work, especially Super Trivia Volume 2, were popular sources for questions. Wirth counted, and it seemed like up to a third of the questions in the game were from that book of his. Well, sure enough, one of the questions was, what's Columbo's first name? With this proof that the game took his work, Wirth sued the game for $300 million. However, in 1987's Wirth vs. Sletchow and Writer Company, the case was dismissed, under the theory that Wirth could not copyright the facts themselves, and while the game took a lot of Wirth's facts, it also took facts from a lot of other sources as well, not to mention that a board game formulating the facts as questions was substantially different from Wirth's list of facts. Wirth appealed all the way to Supreme Court, but he lost. The legend is true. And the court case, we found that dude lost. He did not win that shit, and we can get in the fuck out of my courtroom. Thank you all so much for returning to my courtroom for Judge Amy. More Columbo videos. I got one more in my pocket, and it's about Mrs. Columbo. Yes, the character, we don't know if it's real or not real. I don't know. I am watching the show, but you can't convince me that she's real, so. Oh, also sorry there aren't really any more Christmas videos. I kind of decided to give up. I think I'll make one more about the fact that we're gonna get a Santa anime about that was written from the dude who wrote Wicked, I think. Or I think the guy who wrote Wizard of Oz. That's still a bit weird. Also, make sure to vote in that poll I put out of what I should review if I hit 700. You guys are kind of being indecisive when it comes to what I should do. You guys are... I haven't checked right now. I think Editing Amy will show the poll right now. But so far, it was like 50-50 last time I checked on I Dream of Jeannie and Saved by the Bell. I'm sad Gilligan's Island didn't win. I was really hoping to do Gilligan's Island. I guess I'll just save it for just like a random video. I don't really know, but I'm really hoping I Dream of Jeannie wins. I saw a clip of the TV movie and I was like, oh, she slays. And also she was in the Brady Bunch video I made. I was gonna talk about her one day anyway. But I've got so many videos planned for next year that I haven't made thumbnails for any of them, and I really should do that because I have to make a video being like, oh, what am I making this year? So much stuff. And the fact that I have that series, my series is coming up, Forgotten Disney Movies, and then the Partially Lost and Found box. Can't wait for that series. The Partially Lost and Found box is about sitcoms, by the way. It's not about like anything else. It's about like partially lost and found shows, and that's all there is to it. I will still be talking about lost media, but partially lost and found box, okay? But that's all there is to the video. I'm gonna go edit this, watch some Danny Gonzalez, maybe some draw, and then I will also make some thumbnails, so I'll see you all in the next video, where we talk about Mrs. Columbo. And no, I'm not doing some dumbass film theory video, like, I'm not gonna do some dumbass film theory thing about if, you know, who she is, you know, I'm just, no.
But I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face. What is a boy to do? Frazier has left the building.